Hey everyone, welcome back to another video from A Man Talks FPL SC. In this video we're going through the Game Week 15 team selection. The game weeks are coming thick and fast, so time to drop another team selection video. Hopefully you guys enjoy it. If you do, really appreciate a thumbs up on the video. Do please consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already, as I review how I went in Game Week 14 and what I'm looking to do for Game Week 15. But let's get straight into it. So looking at how the team did in Game Week 14, it was a red arrow, which is unfortunately the first red arrow we've had in quite a few weeks. So I can't be too unhappy given that, first red arrow in quite a few weeks, and the wildcard was a success, but it was a red arrow nonetheless, down to 12.8k. We scored 61 points with 2 auto sub points coming from the bench in terms of Brian Mbuemo, so not really too much extra points there with Reece James not playing in the midweek fixture. I mean, overall 61 looks like an okay score in any given game week, but if you take away the points by the Liverpool boys, there's not really too much more to speak of. I mean, Salah and Jota themselves scored 38, add in Trent, that's 40 of my 61 points just from the 3 Liverpool players, and only Rafinha was the only other player to return. Ramsdale conceding 3 goals, but still getting 3 points because he did make quite a few saves. I'm happy enough with the 3 points, when your goalkeeper concedes 3 points, but the defenders, not too much to speak of here. I mean, Trent, only the 2 points, wasn't able to get in any of the attacking returns, and Solo, I didn't have any attacking stats here either, and obviously Watkins scored the goal for Villa, and Alonso didn't really look the best, to be honest. He did have some couple of moments in attack where he actually pre-assisted the 2 goals actually for Chelsea, so he was close to some attacking returns, but defensively did not look very good. He did get a yellow card as well, so only the 1 pointer there. And as we've touched on in the midfield already, Salah captain, Jota looking fantastic, and Jota had a great finish as well, so definitely looking like a great buy since I've got him in. I think that's around 30 points in the last 3 games that I've had him, so obviously a fantastic purchase for that, covering off that Liverpool attack even more so, aside from Salah. Rafinha stepping up to take that penalty in the dying embers of that game was a great sight to see. Obviously I don't think he is the first choice penalty taker for Leeds. It's normally Bamford and Click, and then I think Rodrigo did take the last few penalties, but when he did, that was when Rafinha was off the pitch, so I imagine then Rafinha is probably the 3rd choice penalty taker. But to be honest, I wasn't very impressed with Leeds overall in that game, and I was obviously very lucky to get that penalty. Overall, I don't want that kind of return to cover over what was not a good performance overall by Rafinha or Leeds themselves. So only the 8 points, but I'll happily take those 8 points. The forwards continued to struggle. Antonio got a late yellow card. He did look close on a couple of occasions to actually getting a goal. There was that really scuffy situation where Duffy could have had an own goal and it would have been an Antonio assist. He also did set up Fornals for a shot that did hit the crossbar, and he did have a good header himself on goal, and Sanchez made a pretty good save. So yes, another blank for Antonio. I can't count how many blanks it is now in a row, but a single point with the late yellow card is a bit frustrating, but I still think we've held him for this long. It's probably another hold, I think, up until West Ham have their good fixtures coming up. Kane, oh my goodness, what a struggle. He's not been a good buy. We're seeing other, cheaper forwards like Dennis and King absolutely smash it, and Kane, our 12.3 million premium forward, just not getting the job done. He did miss a big chance as well, and he also pre-assisted Reguilon's assist for Son, and seeing Son score, really did hurt my rank, as well as some other players like Smith Rowe as well. And then Ivan Toney, really disappointing again with 2 points. He did look okay in the attack, but Brentford overall, I'm just not liking the look of how they're playing at the moment. I think a couple of injuries have really hampered them. And I think the final straw for me was he had the ball fell to him, and he actually had a good first touch in the penalty box, but he didn't take the shot and he passed it to his right, I think to a Norgard. And I thought, what are you doing? You're the centre forward, take the shot. But he didn't take it, and that was really, really frustrating. But yeah, he's definitely someone I'm thinking about maybe taking out this week. I know he's got Leeds and Watford coming up, but I'm not really liking the way that Brentford's looking, and the other players I do want to target. Overall, red arrow to 12.8k. Still very happy with how the team is kind of, obviously that rank is really good at the moment, but I do think there are a couple of things that I can change with the team just to show the bench as well. So we had Mbuemo with the 2 points, who had it first sub coming on for Reece James, who auto subbed off. Funnily enough, Brownhill is actually the player I should have brought on. 3 points he had, so that extra point could mean anything in terms of the ranking, but obviously I was not going to really play Brownhill above Livramento and Mbuemo. But just to recap, didn't make any transfers for Game Week 14. I've got 0.3 mil in the bank. Let's see how the team is looking for Game Week 15. So this is how my team is currently set up for Game Week 15 without making any particular moves. Again, the defense, I'm not expecting too many returns here because we have all of our defenders actually playing away from home. We've got Reece James and Alonso away to West Ham, which is not a very easy matchup. And they didn't look the best at the back, especially I think the lack of Chilwell and James. And then centre midfield, they had Loftus-Cheek and Saul Niguez. And that's definitely not on par with the Kante, Kovacic, etc. So I do think that that lack of quality in their centre midfield definitely hampers their overall defence, and obviously no Chilwell or James doesn't help either. So hopefully James is going to be fit for the weekend. We haven't got any press conference news as the time that I'm recording, just because I wanted to get the video out to you guys, just to give enough time just to give you some thought as to what I'm doing. But Reece James potentially could be a doubt again for the weekend, but we've got a decent enough bench in terms of Antonio at home to Chelsea is not the best matchup, but at least we know that potentially if Chelsea's defense isn't the strongest, we've got Antonio who could potentially get some attacking returns there. I mean, Ramsdale away to Everton I think is a good fixture. I'll be hoping for a clean sheet because Everton attack has not been looking the best recently. Trent away to Wolves, again it's an away fixture. Wolves are kind of a mid-tier, pretty decent team overall, but Trent is just one of the best FPL assets, so not going to worry too much about him. Midfield, I think Rafinha, Salah and Jota, very happy to keep the three of them for this particular game week. I mean, Rafinha, I had a mind to potentially sell him because I wasn't liking how they looked. But given that he got the penalty and, if he's potentially, again, on penalties for this particular game week and it's Brentford at home, I think there's enough good factors there to hold him for just one more week. After this, though, the fixtures do really turn for Rafinha. So he's definitely someone in game week 16, potentially looking to sell. And Mbeumo and Tony away to Leeds. Honestly, I know on paper that fixture looks good, but Leeds have not been the worst at the back, to be honest. The last few weeks, I think they've only conceded like 3 goals in the past 3 or 4 matches, something like that. They've been pretty decent at the back. I think having Cooper at the back really does help them. And also with Calvin Phillips to kind of shore up that centre midfield, I think overall they're a lot more solid as a unit. Meslier is a pretty decent keeper himself. I don't know, maybe I'm just talking myself into selling Tony and Mbeumo because I've been really frustrated with the pair of them. Mbeumo especially, because it was a 50-50 call on wildcard between him and Emil Smith-Rowe, and obviously we know that Smith-Rowe has been absolutely killing it. He's gone up by 0.7 million price, and Mbeumo's done basically nothing. So yeah, Leeds away, I don't think it's the easiest fixture on paper. They do have Watford in game week 16 at home, so potentially there could be some goals in that match, but to be honest, we've seen them in the easy matchups not even do that well. Norwich recently, they didn't score that many, so I don't think that I've got that much faith in their attack, even though their fixtures for the next 2 are pretty decent on paper. So Mbeumo and Tony are definitely on the chopping block, as is Harry Kane up there up top. This is the last game probably that I'm going to hold him. I mean, Norwich at home, if he can't get anything against Norwich, he's probably going to be an easy sell. And obviously there's some big transfer targets looming in terms of Cristiano Ronaldo. I mean, scored a brace. He did take the penalty against Arsenal, which him being on penalties, if that is locked in moving forward, is obviously a big appeal for him. It doesn't necessarily mean that, he's all of a sudden a fantastic option just because he got penalties, but it is nice to know that if you're paying premium money, you want that guy to usually be on penalties. So Ronaldo, again, firming up to be a decent option coming from game week 16 onwards, and United's fixtures from then are really, really solid. Kane, probably going to run him out for one more game week, but not holding too much hope. He's just giving me 2s every week, and I'm sure a lot of you out there can probably feel that frustration as well if any of you did get Kane. Son obviously scored, so obviously that makes that decision a little bit more of a bitter pill to swallow. And on the bench there, we've got Brownhill away to Newcastle, Livramento at home to Brighton. So the bench is actually not looking too bad if there is rotation, but I've got the 2 free transfers, 0.3 mil in the bank, definitely some moves I want to make. I think Kane, Tony and Mbeumo are the main players on the chopping block, and Rafinha as well from game week 16. The rest of the team I'm happy enough to hold for a little bit longer than that. So what I'll do, I'll jump onto the main FPL transfers page and just talk you through my thoughts and do a bit of tinkering there. So I've just jumped onto the main FPL page, and as you can see there, I've got 0.3 in the bank and 2 free transfers. And if it wasn't evident enough, I'm very frustrated with the Brentford attackers, particularly in Mbeumo. I think he's just been a horrible purchase on the wildcard. The problem is with 0.3 in the bank, most of the good targets that you want to get to, like your Smith-Rowes, your Gallaghers, etc., they're all above £6 million now. So with only 0.3 in the bank, that's about 5.8. Really, there's not really any midfielders around that price bracket that I want to get. And so I could potentially just hold Mbeumo for this particular game week because it's Leeds away, which I know I've said not the easiest fixture on paper, but I still think it's a decent fixture, obviously, that you can hold. And Watford at home next week is okay, I guess. But I think I really want to target and be maybe it's a bit me being a bit knee-jerky, I don't know, after getting a red arrow or something like that. But I really want to target the next couple of game weeks, and I'm not adverse to taking -4s either. Ideally, I think I would take 2 free transfers into game week 16 just because that's going to be a week where we're going to have a lot of fixture swings. So for example, if I just quickly look at Rafinha, you can see there from game week 16 he gets into a really, really tough run, so he's definitely someone I'm probably going to sell from 16 and probably look to bring back in around game week 21 when the fixtures do turn again for Rafinha. But I'm just not impressed enough by Leeds, I think, to hold him during that period. Obviously Manchester United go on an amazing run as well during this period of time, so If you take a quick look at the Manchester United fixtures, you could argue they even start this week against Crystal Palace at home from game week 15, but Palace are in okay opposition. I think 16 really is when it really swings hard, when they've got Norwich, Brentford, Brighton, Newcastle and Burnley. So again, that's two teams where I've got one team who I want to get away from in terms of Leeds, one team I want to get into in terms of Manchester United. West Ham also do get into a nice fixture run from game week 16 or even game week 18 full on when they get into Norwich, Southampton and Watford, but they've got Burnley away in 16. So it's pretty evident that game week 16 there's a lot of fixture swings. So I think having 2 free transfers in that week could be good. The problem is that with only 0.3 in the bank, I can't really see any wholesale changes that benefit the team, I think, with just the one move. So I might have to take the 2 moves here. Originally, what I did think was actually to create some funds, and as I touched on, West Ham do have some good fixtures coming up. I was potentially looking at maybe downgrading Livramento to Ben Johnson. So again, this will be something that we need to hear from press conferences, but Kufal did play right back, but Johnson actually showed his versatility and played at left back. And this is because Aaron Cresswell was out injured. What I kind of want to wait on in terms of press conferences is potentially get an update on the extent of that injury, because if it's a long-term injury for Cresswell, then Johnson could be good to go actually for quite a long time. And as you saw previously, West Ham's fixtures are really nice. So he's potentially someone I did think about potentially swapping out for Livramento, because I mean, it's a bit of a sideways move. There's no real need for Livramento to go, but it would just be more to create funds. And as you can see there, that would leave me 6.1 in the bank, which then lets me get a lot of the good kind of midfielders that I want to go for. Now, in terms of which midfielder I'd want to go for, I'm not as impressed by Gallagher in the past couple of weeks. He's playing a little bit deeper. He was on set pieces, but his average positioning I wasn't too thrilled about. His underlying stats are still good. But Gallagher I wasn't too interested in. Smith Rowe is probably my top target actually. I know Smith Rowe has gone up in price to like 6 million, and I missed out on a lot of points because you can see that he's got like 5 goals and 2 assists now. But the fixtures coming out for Arsenal, I still think are very good. I know he's highly owned at 28%, but I'm not going to be like, oh no, I sold him, I've missed the boat. I still think the boat is there. I don't think the ship sailed, because you can see the fixtures still up until around game week 21 are pretty good. Everton away, Everton have been a pretty bad defense. Southampton at home, I think is a good game. West Ham at home, probably not the best. But then it's Leeds away, Norwich. I've just spoken about Leeds not being that good. The thing is, I also have a bit more faith in the Arsenal attack compared to, the Brentford attack. So Smith Rowe's definitely caught my eye. I mean, he just passes the eye test. I mean, the underlying stats aren't as good. His goal against Manchester United was a bit fortuitous, but to be honest, the actual shot itself was pretty nice. So I think that was a good enough sign for me anyway. So Smith Rowe is definitely someone I'm looking to target in this particular game week. Other players that I did consider, I think Bowen is also definitely someone I want to potentially look at because of the good West Ham fixtures. He's around 6.4, so I wouldn't be able to afford it doing the downgrade in this way. One other option I did think about was also Cornet from Burnley, because their fixtures for quite a while are actually not that bad. They've got Newcastle away in game week 15, which is a great fixture. West Ham, Watford, Villa, Everton, United, Leeds, Leicester. I think it's a pretty decent run long term. The problem with Burnley attackers that I find is that they just don't play the full 90 minutes. So you can see there he hasn't played the full 90 minutes since he's joined Burnley. You can see 77, 67, then it's 87, 83, 84, which you could argue is close enough to 90 minutes. And obviously he's already banged in 5 goals, but he's highly outperforming his underlying stats. And so Cornet, I did think about briefly, but I kind of went off him. And I think Smith Rowe is probably realistically the one that I would go for. And so those 2 moves leave me 0.1 in the bank. Now, I did originally think about this, but the problem was I didn't think Livramento downgrade was probably the best use of that second free transfer, because there's nothing wrong really with Livramento. So instead, if I wanted to make the money, looking elsewhere in the team, I mean, Antonio is probably maybe in some people's eyes an obvious sell, but given that I've held on for this long, I think I'm probably just going to continue to hold, because I was kind of aware that, it's going into tough fixtures. The points weren't going to be as flowing as what they were at the beginning of the season. So for me, I'm probably just going to hold Antonio. And the only other obvious downgrade I saw on my team, I mean, you could say Kane, but game week 15 he's got Norwich, so I can't sell him before Norwich, surely not. So it's Ivan Toney. Now, I don't think Ivan Toney is the worst hold, because he's on penalties. He'll play the full 90 minutes, so you're getting good guaranteed minutes, and especially over the Christmas period. I don't think that's a bad thing at all. And I think he's like one of the highest scoring forwards, despite only scoring like 3 goals. You can see there, looking at forwards, he actually ranks relatively highly in terms of the forwards point scoring. I'm sorry, I've realized that my screen cuts out the points, but he's on 55 points. So there's only 6 forwards who scored more than him. Problem is that I just don't think he's going to, deliver the output. And I think we're seeing the Watford players do super well, Dennis and King. And I think I'm going to use potentially my second free transfer to downgrade Tony to one of them too, just kind of ride the bandwagon. But Watford still do have good fixtures coming up. So just taking a look at Dennis, second highest point scoring forward as well in the game. So you can see there, Man City this week is tough. Then it's Brentford, Burnley, Palace, Wolves. So I think it's a pretty good run of games for Watford, and they're looking really good in attack, especially ever since Ranieri has taken over. So I think what I've been talking myself into during the day was potentially taking out Tony for either one of Dennis or King. Now, I looked at some future transfer moves. Dennis actually worked out better for me in terms of budget for future moves that I wanted to do. So Dennis is actually the one I wanted to bring in. He's rising in price quickly. He's at 5.4, and I think tomorrow he's definitely going to go up to 5.5. And so those two moves leave me 1 mil in the bank, which I think is actually good for my future moves that I want to do. So with that extra 1 mil in the bank compared to going for King, who I'd have 0.7 in the bank, what I want to potentially do in Game Week 16 is take out Kane and Rafinha. Now, Ronaldo's come straight back into my thinking. For a while I was thinking, do I actually want him? He's going to be off penalties, he's not going to be captain worthy, so is it worth actually getting him? But then there's the lack of the forward options. I don't know, maybe it's just the Ronaldo factor coming into a nice run of games. I think I want to leave the option open to get Ronaldo. So let's say hypothetically Game Week 16, because I know myself, I'll probably be very tempted to go for Ronaldo anyway. Let's say I go for Ronaldo in Game Week 16. So based on current prices, that leaves me 0.9 in the bank, although I'm fully expecting Ronaldo's price to go up, given that I think he's going to be heavily bought. He's just got a brace and now he's coming into a nice run of games. But for now, I've got 0.9 in the bank. Now, what I want to do with that is it gives me the option of taking out Rafinha, and I've got 7.5 then in the bank. Now, the reason I wanted to go for Dennis to create that to create the extra money was that this allows me to actually potentially go for like a Bernardo Silva. As you can see there is 7.4 mil. I spoke about him in my last team selection video. I think getting a City midfielder for this really nice run of games that they've got, I'll just quickly bring it up here. I wouldn't be able to get him in for Watford, but I get him for Wolves, Leeds at home, Newcastle, Leicester, who can't keep a clean sheet to save themselves, Brentford. So it's just a great run of games, and Bernardo Silva is looking the most nailed on in terms of the midfielders, as you can quickly see here. He's played 90 minutes basically since game week 6, and even before that he was playing, he had 2 90-minute games before that. So he looks absolutely nailed on. He will probably get rotated at some point, but I don't mind, trying to go for a slice of the City attacking pie. The problem is that obviously the points can be very heavily distributed. I do expect Bernardo to keep going up in price as well, so this leaves very little wiggle room, but it does leave the door open if I do want to go for Bernardo. Alternatively, I could go for Gundogan, who I did speak about in last week's video as well, last team selection video. He would be around 7.3. Obviously, he picked up a bit of a knock, and so that's why he's out. That's why he didn't play, in game week 14. If we do see him play in game week 15, or if we don't see him play in the midweek fixture, and if he's potentially available for game week 16, then this money in the bank does let me go for Gundogan instead. Otherwise, if I don't decide to go for either of the City mids, this still leaves me plenty of money to go for like a Jared Bowen, who I spoke about before, and that would leave me around 1 million in the bank, and I can just leave that 1 million for covering any emergencies if anything else happens anywhere in the team. So just for demonstration purposes, as you can see there, that's what the team could look like in the next couple of weeks. That's 0.1 in the bank, so it's very, very tight in terms of the price rises, so I'm not quite sure if I'll be able to get it. Potentially then that means I just settle for Gundogan instead, or I just forget about going for a City midfielder, and I just go for a Jared Bowen instead. Alternatively as well, I could drop Kane down to like a Jesus as well to cover off that City attacker, and then that still leaves plenty of money in the bank to upgrade Rafinha to like a Jadon Sancho as well. So I'm still taking Game Week 15 as well to scout the Manchester United attack, see which one's potentially the best option. But this particular plan, I'm going for the Ronaldo and potentially the City midfielder. Otherwise, we'll go for Jared Bowen instead, or an Ilkay Gundogan. So to recap all of that, Game Week 15, potentially looking to do Mbeumo and Tony out for Smith Rowe and for Dennis. Game Week 16, it would be Kane and Rafinha to Ronaldo and to potentially Gundogan, Bernardo Silva, or a Jared Bowen, and that would be for a -4. A -4 is not ideal, and I could potentially, delay one of the Mbeumo or Tony moves to next week, but I do want to target, Arsenal have got Everton this particular game week. I know Dennis has got Man City, and it seems strange taking out Tony, who's got Leeds, for Dennis, who's got Man City, but it'd just be one week that we'd probably have to cop it on the chin, but we've seen him score against Chelsea, so why couldn't he score against Man City as well? I've got more faith in him scoring, to be honest, than Ivan Toney. So here is the comparison I did between Dennis and King, and I thought the pun was nice, the what forwards. Anyway, that's just me being cheesy. But as you can see, not too much difference there in terms of price between the two. The points per appearance is definitely in Dennis's favour. He's already got the 12 attacking returns, which is just unbelievable to think about, especially from a forward who's only about 5.4 million. The fixtures, as we touched on previously, after Man City, are very, very nice. Underlying stats for both of them are very, very good actually. So underlying stats basis, King does outperform, and even if you take away that one big game he had against Everton where he scored that hat-trick, his underlying stats are still actually better than Dennis's. And just taking a look at the heat map, I don't think there's too much to read into the heat map, to be honest, but you can just kind of see the way that they play. Dennis is typically playing out wider, but still gets into the box, and you can see that King typically operates in a bit more of a central role. So you can see actually King has got a really strongly developed heat map just around that 6-yard box. So you can see that's where he gets the majority of his chances, which is why his underlying stats are actually so good on an expected goals front. The reason that I went for Dennis is mainly for budget, but if I had to look at the two, a couple of factors that would make me swing towards King, well, there you go, there's a nice rhyme for you. He's on penalties indefinitely while Ismail Assar is out, so I think being on penalties is obviously a nice little bonus to him. He's not going to go away on AFCON duties. He'll be pretty much nailed on for the long term. There is some talk about Dennis potentially going away with Nigeria to AFCON. He wasn't part of their previous squad, if I'm not mistaken, but given that he's playing so well, there could be a chance that he does actually go to AFCON. The thing about that is that I don't think you should read or take too much of stock into that, because that's around game week 21. I've fallen into this trap before where something that happens 5-6 weeks from now and I'm thinking, oh, I need to plan for that, so let me choose the other guy. I think don't let that affect your decisioning too much. I think I'm happy enough to go for Dennis, and in 6 weeks time, if it turns out he goes for AFCON, we'll deal with it then, or we just bench him. He's that cheap enough that you can bench him, and so I don't think that should be the ultimate factor to make you decide it. I think you should just decide on who's the player who's going to potentially score more points. I think they're going to be pretty even. I've just gone for Dennis for the budget saving, but I think underlying stats basis and the fact that he's on penalties would maybe lean me towards King. So I'll wrap up the video there. It's going to be a little bit of a longer one, but I thought I just wanted to get a lot of my thoughts out there, because I think the next couple of weeks are going to be pretty critical in terms of changing how our team is going to be looking, and obviously there's still press conferences to come as well, so do follow me on Twitter as well to stay updated with my current thinking based on press conference news. Hopefully you guys all enjoyed the video. Do drop it a like if you did, and really appreciate if you subscribe to the channel as well if you do enjoy the content. But I'll see you all in the next video.